Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney and this is Creative on the Cheap. Today I have got another round of festive fall DIYs for you. The best part are these are easy to do and very inexpensive to make. I'm going to share the cost breakdown for each one of these. Now let's get into these DIYs. For this first DIY, we are going to be making some wooden pumpkins. So you will need a 2x3 cut down to 10, 8, and 6 inches. I'm going to be taking this folk art chalk paint in the color Monarch, and I'm going to go ahead and paint just one coat on these boards. I'm not going to try to do super full coverage because I do kind of want that rustic look. Now, if you're more into that farmhouse vibe, you certainly could paint these white or ivory, whatever you choose. But this entire 8-foot board only cost me $2.98, and I only ended up using 74 cents worth of the board. And now I have extra wood left over for future projects. So I'm just going to get to painting these 3 boards, and then after that, we'll move on to the next step. To give my boards a little more of a distressed look, I'm going to take some of this brown cream wax that I got from Hobby Lobby a long time ago, and I'm going to use my fan brush, and I'm just going to brush along the edges, use my fingers to kind of smear it in here and there, and just brush it on until I get the look that I want. You certainly could go in with some sandpaper if you would like to do that as well. Either one will work well, or even some watered down brown paint. Now that the pumpkins are all painted exactly how I want them and distressed looking, I'm going to go ahead and add my stems. Now I'm using these stems that I got from Dollar Tree 2 years ago. I have a bunch, but you know what I always say, if you're a subscriber to my channel, just go find some sticks in your yard, perhaps go trim a neighbor's bush. So I'm just going to take these stems, figure out where I want them to go, and then I'm just going to use some hot glue to attach them to the top of my wooden pumpkins. To add a little detail to my pumpkins, I'm taking some of this green floral wire that I had on hand, and I'm just wrapping it around one of the little Dollar Tree dowel sticks that I had in my stash to make some tendrils for each of my pumpkins. I had this fall floral in my stash that I picked up a couple weeks ago, and I like the leaves on these as well as the little sunflowers. So I'm going to trim off 3 of the little leaves and kind of cut them down, and then I'm going to take a couple of the flowers as well so that I can use those for embellishments. Now I'm going to start hot gluing some of these little embellishments on. So each pumpkin's going to end up getting one of these little tendrils. I'm just going to use my hot glue gun here to attach those. And then each pumpkin is also going to get one green leaf. Before I add the flowers on the little one, I wanted to add a little more texture to it. So I'm taking these little pieces of brown string. These were left over from a project where I made a flower using burlap ribbon where I kind of shredded it. I'm going to show you what it looks like in just a second. Here it is. That's what it looks like. I will link that video down below, or you can go to my Instagram and just see a very quick tutorial of it. But yeah, I'm just going to tie this here, and then once that one's on there, then 2 of these little pumpkins will get flowers, and then that will be done. was ready to tie something around my pumpkins. So originally I took a piece of this burlap ribbon that you can get from Dollar Tree. I cut it in half, and then I started to work with it, but it tied around it kind of wonky, and I didn't really like how it looked. So what did I do? I just grabbed more strings left over from those burlap flowers, and I just loosely tied those around there. You could secure them to your pumpkins if you wanted to. I just chose not to. I'm just going to arrange them so that it sits where I need it to. But you also could make some of those little tiny little burlap flowers to put on these pumpkins as well as an option if you don't want to use the florals. And then once that was done, my last step was just to make a little sign to put in the front of the pumpkins. For the sign, I'm just using one of these little chalkboard picks that you can get from Dollar Tree. And originally I was going to cut a super tiny little sticker on my Cricut. Then I was just going to hand write it, which, by the way, if you don't know this hack and you didn't see it when I shared it on Instagram, the Dollar Tree white correction pens, that like whiteout basically, are awesome for writing on these. One coat and it looks like you're writing with an awesome chalk marker. So there's that little tip if you want that. But I just had these stickers in my stash from the days when I used to have like super fancy planners. And I'm just going to pick one of these stickers and I'm going to stick it on there. And then I'm just going to hot glue this little sign to the front of my rope. And then this little DIY is all finished. The total cost for this project, wait for it, $1.49. I have seen people selling these on Etsy for $35 and $40. What? I have no idea what's going on with that. Make them yourself, everybody. I'm super excited also because today is a collab with my sweet friend Natalie from Design to the Nines. Let's let her pop in and say hi.
Hi, I'm Natalie Callahan over at Design to the Nines, and I just wanted to invite you over after you watch Courtney's amazing episode that she's got planned for you. I've got 5 way cool, dirt cheap fall DIY decor ideas that you're gonna love, and I'm gonna give you some free stuff while you're there, so that's never a bad thing. So finish her episode, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
For the second DIY, I'm going to be using one of these little signs from the Dollar Tree. Now, I have to say, normally I can break these apart really easily, but the back on this one, it was a struggle. Like I was busting out the hammer. I mean, I was using knives. It was quite the ordeal to get it off. But what you want to do is go ahead and break it down. And then once that is all finished and you get it all apart, I'm going to take some of the Waverly chalk paint in the color Truffle, and I'm going to paint the frame all over. While my frame is drying, I'm going to take a piece of scrapbook paper that I had on hand. This scrapbook paper came from Hobby Lobby. I just love it. I think it's so festive for fall. And I'm just going to flip it over and then put the back of the little frame on there so that I can measure how large I need to cut this. And then I'll just cut it out with some scissors. And I'm going to attach it to the back of the frame with some of this Gorilla Glue spray adhesive. I absolutely love this one because it's repositional. So as you go to set things down, it has a super strong hold, but you can still peel it off and adjust as needed. I grabbed my little Arteza hobby kit, and I'm going to be using one of the little pumpkins for this 4-pack. These came from Dollar Tree, and they have them in orange and white this year. So you're going to want to pull the little green wire out. Make sure you save that. And then I'm also going to pull the stem out. Make sure you save that as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my little hobby knife, and I'm just going to cut this pumpkin in half so that I can make my 3D sign. I do get asked about this little kit because it comes with a ton of blades and 3 different housings. It's always linked down below in my description box, and anything else in this video that I talk about or show, I will try to make sure to have linked down below in case you want to know more about it. So once this gets cut, then I'm going to take the stem, and I always feel like their little stems look kind of waxy, and so I'm just going to do a very quick coat of paint using the Truffle Waverly chalk paint on the stem. It's tendril making time. So we're going to grab that little green piece of wire that we set aside, and I'm just using my little Cricut tool here to wrap this around. But if you don't have that, an ice pick, a toothpick, a bamboo skewer, anything that's kind of skinny that you can just wrap it around to get a nice shaped tendril will be perfect. Now we can go ahead and start assembling the box. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and take some hot glue and run it along the back of the frame, and we're going to pop in the back of the frame. Now the little round piece that was popped off, I'm going to go ahead and paint over that with 3 coats of the Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory, and I'm going to let that dry, and then once that's dry I can go ahead and finish assembling my little picture. Time to put this together. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and glue down this little center piece, because this is what we will be attaching our little pumpkin to. Once that is glued down, then we will go ahead and attach our stem back into the pumpkin. You may need to trim it just a little bit so that your pumpkin will lay flat against the little round wooden circle. And then once the pumpkin is glued down and the stem is secured in the pumpkin, you just want to go ahead and add your little tendril. You can poke it into the styrofoam, or if you want to hot glue it, you can do that as well. And then that's it. Once you're done doing that, this little sign is all finished. Total cost that for this project cost me $1.35. For the third DIY, I'm going to be working with some beads. Now, these beads came from Goodwill, and I got them for $2.99. Originally, I had a different plan for this DIY, and so it kind of morphed to something else, but I am going to try to go back and do what I originally thought. I'm just not going to share it right now, because if it doesn't turn out, well, it doesn't turn out. But I'm going to go ahead and cut this apart, and then once I get this all cut apart, I'm going to take a roll of this wired twine from Dollar Tree. Now, originally, I had 2 packs, and I was thinking I wanted a whole bunch of strands of beads, and so I cut way too many, and in the end, I was like, this is too many. I don't need this many. So what you want to do is take your wire twine. You're going to measure 22 inches, and you just want to cut 3 pieces, and you'll still have a little bit left over. Once you have the 3 strips of the wire twine cut, you're going to take 2 pieces of the twine, and you're going to fold them together with each other and basically make an X. And then once you've gotten that, you're going to take that 3rd one and work it in. So what you end up having, they're kind of all interlocked, and you end up with like 6 stringy arms. We are ready to add beads. So very quickly, you are definitely going to want to tape, as you can see here, you're going to want to tape off the end. And what I realized, the trick to do it is to actually have a little bit of the wire exposed, then have the twine, and then you wrap the tape, and then when you get to the part where the wire is, you really cinch the tape on there, and that's kind of how it kept from fraying. This stuff frays so bad, but it's workable. So what I end up doing is I'm going to fill 3 of these with these beads, and I end up putting 11 beads on each of these. And then for the other 3, I wanted a different size bead and a different color, and so I used 13 of these natural color beads. I didn't paint them or stain them or do anything to them. I just left them as is, and I put, again, 13 of those on the other strands. Here's where my idea changed. So as you can see here, I took one of the distressed strands along with one of the natural, and I just twisted the 2 wires together. And this is where I decided, instead of making just a beaded pumpkin with no center, that I wanted to add a styrofoam pumpkin. So you are going to have to adjust the bead count depending on the size of your pumpkin that you put in the center. So I end up just taking 1 off of each strand. So that means that the larger distress beads ended up with 10 and the natural color smaller beads ended up with 12. So again, it just depends on what you put on the center. And you're just going to twist 1 of each type of strand together. So again, you have these 3 sections. And then once that's done, I take this orange pumpkin, which came from Dollar Tree. I've had it in my stash from last year. And I'm just going to paint it with some of the Waverly ivory colored chalk paint, and I'm going to end up putting 3 coats of paint on the pumpkin. Time to finish assembling this. So what you want to do is go ahead and take your, here I have pulled the sections apart. You certainly could leave them together if you want to. It's whatever you want to do as far as assembling this. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. So I'm just going to take my pumpkin, set it in the center, and then I'm going to pull up my pieces and I'm just going to twist them all together in the center. And just, that's a nice thing about it being wired instead of just a plain piece of twine. And I'm just going to twist, 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 twist. And then once I get these all twisted and kind of formed like a stem, I'm going to take the extra wire twine that I had left over and I'm going to just wrap around it. And then that kind of makes the stem a little bit prettier. And then once that's done, I had just a teeny bit left over. And of course, I made a little tendril to add to my pumpkin. And you could add leaves, you could add flowers, you could add whatever you wanted to. But I just love kind of the more earthy, natural look. And I think it's very farmhouse. This project is all finished and it cost me $5.89 to make. For the 4th DIY, I'm going to be working with one of these houses. Now, normally with Dollar Tree items, when they have all these things attached, we can pop them off, right? You know, we pop them off, we think, hey, Wonder Woman power, look at us popping things off. Yeah, no. Dollar Tree, I think, has decided that they're tired of us popping things off. I gouged this thing, I scratched it, I scraped it. Luckily, I had ordered a big box of these because I have some Christmas DIYs coming up where I'm using a lot of them. So I just said, okay, I'm going to put that one away. I grabbed a fresh one right here. And then I thought to myself, okay, one more time, maybe I can get this. Yeah, no. Nope. They've decided they're tired of us popping things off. This is the lesson we shall learn from this. So I'm just going to keep going. So I went ahead and took the twine off and the little bead. I'm going to save that for another project, not for this one. And then I had to get that little circle covered up. So I'm just going to take some painter's tape, cover it with some painter's tape, and then I can move on with the rest of my project. Once that little center circle of annoyance is taped off, then I decided I was going to paint this with some ivory Waverly chalk paint, but first I need to pull these labels off. Hitting it with the heat gun is the fastest and easiest way to peel those off, in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this entire house with 1 coat of this Waverly ivory colored chalk paint. And then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and start taping off stripes. So I decided I wanted to do some fall color stripes. My vision for this was to try to make it kind of a boho-ish house. I don't personally know that I did that. I don't know. Y'all let me know. What could I have done? Maybe added to it? I'm not sure. Anyway, all I knew is I wanted to use fall colors. So I'm going to go in using some painter's tape along with some washi tape and do different thickness of stripes. I'm going to use pumpkin Waverly chalk paint. I'm going to just let the ivory that's on here also be a stripe color, and the other color will be the moss Waverly chalk paint. My stripes are all on there, and now it's time to paint this little gather wooden circle. So I'm just going to take the Ivory Waverly chalk paint again, and I'm going to end up putting 3 coats on this little circle. To the center of that little wooden circle, I'm going to attach one of these little wooden leaf stickers. These were from Dollar Tree last year. I had it in my stash, and I'm just brushing on some of that brown cream wax that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to take this little leaf and I'm going to hot glue it to that little wooden circle. Now it's time to braid some yarn. So I've got 12 pieces of this yarn that I had in my stash, and I'm just going to group these in groups of 4, and then I'm just going to do a regular braid down, and then I'm going to kind of check it on my house by wrapping it around so I know exactly how long to braid it. I forgot to measure it before I glued it down to my house, so sorry about that. But anyway, once you get down towards the end, you want to go ahead and just make a tassel. So it's super easy. Just take the extra yarn at the end and wrap it around maybe 3 of your fingers, 2 of your fingers, depending on what size tassel you want. And then you're just going to take a piece and tie it off, then cut the ends, and then go ahead and tie off the top. And there you go. You've got a nice little tassel attached to this braided yarn. The last step is to take this braided rope tassel hanger and go ahead and secure it to your house. I'm just going to anchor it in a couple of spots with a little bit of hot glue, and then this project is finished. This house cost me a total of $1.45 to make. For the last DIY, I'm going to be using this tray that I picked up at Goodwill for $4.99. So first, let me tell you, if you want to replicate this tray for super cheap, even possibly free, I would say pick up a 1x12, and then you're going to need 1x2s. Underneath this tray, there's a 1x2 kind of on each end. That's how it's sitting up off of the table. Now, if you didn't know, Home Depot, I'm not sure about Lowe's, but Home Depot has a scrap wood like cart, and so when they make cuts, any of the scrap wood, they just throw on there, and that wood is always free. So every time I go, I always just look to see if there's anything that I want there. So definitely check that first, but you could certainly buy this and then have some wood left over for future projects. You could easily make a tray like this. Now, the stencil, I created this design on my Cricut. I will link the design down below in the description box for you. And the stencil paper, I get asked about this all the time, stencil vinyl. I absolutely love it. It's the only one that I use when I make stencils, and I will definitely make sure to link that down below as well. So once I get my Cricut vinyl transferred on there, I'm going to get ready to paint. Now, here is the key for painting or stenciling onto wood if you don't want bleeding. I take some matte Mod Podge and I paint a very light coat on top of the stencil, covering it all over. Let that dry, then go in with your paint, and you won't have any issues at all. The last step is for me to just go ahead and pull out all these little centerpieces and then the letters on the apple. This was just the Crimson Waverly chalk paint. That's the red that I used to paint this, and as you can tell, there's absolutely no bleeding whatsoever. I think this is a great fall decor piece, something a little different than pumpkins. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Let me know down below which one of these DIYs was your favorite, and don't forget to go over to Natalie's channel and check out what inexpensive fall DIYs she has to show you today. I know they will be awesome. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.